Why cats have never been to outer space. Picture this: a cat in a tiny astronaut suit, floating gracefully in zero gravity, then suddenly panicking because it can't tell which way is down, knocking over millions of pounds worth of equipment, and somehow blaming you for it. Sounds chaotic? That's because it would be. Despite humanity sending dogs, monkeys, and even fruit flies into space, cats have made the trip only once. Félicette. More on this kitty later. There are actually some very real and very funny reasons why cats have been permanently left off the space travel guest list. Let's break it down. Before humans ever set foot in space, scientists sent animals first. Why? Because they needed to understand how living bodies react to extreme conditions like zero gravity, radiation, and intense acceleration. Dogs were among the most famous early space travelers, especially Laika, launched by the Soviet Union in 1957. Monkeys and chimpanzees were also sent up by the United States. Even mice, frogs, and insects have taken cosmic road trips. So, why no cats? It's not like cats are rare. There are an estimated 600 million domestic cats worldwide. Statistically speaking, at least one of them should have accidentally wandered into a rocket by now. But no, cats were intentionally excluded. Let's start with the obvious. Cats are not exactly known for their obedience. Space animals need to be trained. They have to sit still for long periods, tolerate confinement, respond to stimuli, and sometimes even perform tasks. Dogs and monkeys? Trainable. Cats? Good luck. Cats operate on a very simple internal system. Do I want to do this? If not, that's an absolute no. Training a cat to calmly sit in a small capsule during a rocket launch is like asking it to willingly take a bath during a thunderstorm while being vacuumed. It's not happening. Scientists in the 20th century actually did experiments with training cats for research purposes. The results? Let's just say the cats were not impressed, not cooperative, and definitely not interested in advancing human knowledge. Now here's where it gets scientifically interesting. Cats are famous for their righting reflex, the ability to twist their bodies mid-air and land on their feet. It's an incredible biological mechanism involving their flexible spine and inner ear balance system. But in space, there is no up or down, which means a cat's built-in superpower becomes completely useless. In zero gravity, cats would lose their sense of orientation. Studies on animals in microgravity have shown that creatures rely heavily on gravity cues to understand movement and balance. Without it, confusion sets in very quickly. For a cat, this could mean constant disorientation, stress, and attempts to correct themselves in a direction which doesn't exist. In other words, a floating existential crisis. And a stressed cat is not a calm, cooperative astronaut. It's a tiny, furry agent of chaos. Now you might be thinking, wait, cats love boxes. Wouldn't a space capsule be perfect? But here's the catch. Cats only like confined spaces when they choose them. A cardboard box on the floor? Excellent. A high-tech capsule strapped to a rocket? Absolutely not. Space travel involves loud noises, strong vibrations, G-forces during launch, and being restrained in one place. Cats are highly sensitive to sound and movement. Sudden changes can trigger stress responses. In fact, veterinary studies show that cats are particularly prone to anxiety in unfamiliar, uncontrollable environments. Rockets are basically the most unfamiliar, uncontrollable environments imaginable. Félicette. Okay, to be fair, there was one famous cat involved in space research. In 1963, French scientists sent a cat named Félicette into space. Félicette survived the flight and returned safely to Earth, making her technically the first and only cat to go to space. She was trained, yes, trained, for spaceflight. Scientists monitored her brain activity using implanted electrodes to understand how the nervous system reacts to space conditions. She traveled on a suborbital flight, meaning she reached space briefly, experienced a few minutes of weightlessness, and then returned safely to Earth. But here's the thing, the mission didn't lead to a long-term cat astronaut program. Scientists gathered the data they needed and decided not to repeat the experiment ever again, which tells you everything you need to know. Even after successfully sending a cat to space, the conclusion was, cool, but let's not do that again. From a scientific perspective, cats don't offer advantages over other animals used in space research. Dogs and primates were chosen because they can be trained to follow commands. Their physiology is easier to monitor in controlled conditions, and they can tolerate structured environments. Cats, on the other hand, resist training, have unpredictable stress responses, and are less cooperative in experimental setups. So if you're a scientist trying to run a precise, controlled experiment in space, choosing a cat is like bringing a toddler to a board meeting. Technically possible, practically disastrous. Today, space missions are far more advanced. We send humans, robots, and occasionally small organisms for research. But cats, still grounded. Modern space agencies focus on animals that help answer specific biological questions, like how muscles deteriorate in microgravity or how cells respond to radiation. Cats don't really fit into those research models. Also, imagine trying to explain to mission control why the spacecraft systems failed. Well, Houston, the cat pressed something. Let's be honest for a second. Even if we could send cats to space easily, should we? Cats enjoy routine, familiar environments and being in control of their surroundings. Space offers zero routine, constant change, and no control whatsoever. A cat in space wouldn't feel like an explorer. It would feel like it had been abducted by aliens, which, from the cat's perspective, is exactly what happened. So why have cats never been to outer space? Because they're hard to train, easily stressed, not suited to zero gravity, and frankly, not interested in your space ambitions. They'd float around, knock something expensive over, stare directly into a camera like they did nothing wrong, and then demand food. And honestly, Earth is probably safer that way.